Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton went head-to-head at last night's leaders' debate, trading blows on issues such as nuclear, housing and GP visits.
You just need your Medicare card, not your credit card, because Labor created Medicare, will strengthen Medicare.
I've heard the Prime Minister run this stunt before with the only need your Medicare card. It's not true. Bulk billing rates have reduced under this government.
The Coalition will turn its attention to energy today, revealing how much Aussies will save under their national gas plan. For their take, let's bring in Housing Minister Clare and Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume. Good morning to you. Jane, we'll start with you. So your modelling says households will save 3% on electricity bills, 7% on gas bills under the plan to force companies to keep Australian gas onshore. How are you actually going to get the companies to do that? Because as I understand it, a deal was done with the three big gas companies, I think in Queensland, about 2010, to ship most of the East Coast gas offshore. So those contracts would be in place, wouldn't they?
So, Nat, this is about an East Coast reservation, essentially keeping Aussie gas for Aussies. There are three ways that gas is used. It can be used in long-term contracts, it can be used for domestic supply, and it can also be traded on the spot market using those volatile prices. That's where this East Coast gas reserve will come from. Bringing more gas into the system will unlock supply and bring prices down over time. We estimate that it's going to create around a 23% drop in wholesale gas prices. That will feed through to industrial gas, to retail gas, and also to electricity prices. You'll recall at the last election, Anthony Albanese promised $275 off power bills. Well, that never came to pass. In fact, your gas bills went up by about 34%, your electricity bills went up 32%, and there seems to be no solution in sight from an Albanese government. What we want to see is more supply into the system, unlocking more supply, and bringing prices down by putting pressure on prices.
So, Claire, I know there is something called the Australian Domestic Gas Security Mechanism. So you can already reserve gas into the system, which I know your side has already told us. Is there enough gas? Should we start giving the go-ahead to more gas projects in Australia to help this problem out?
Well, that's one of the really big flaws in the proposal that's been put forward by Jane and her colleagues, Nat, and it's less a gas policy and more gaslighting for the Australian people. We've been waiting months for the Coalition to bring forward detail on what they promised would be meaningful cost of living support for Australian households on energy, and we wake up this morning to find that they're talking about maybe a $60 a year reduction on energy bills for people in 2 years' time. Now, this is just disgraceful. This is the party, remember, that voted against every piece of cost of living relief that our government has put in place to support Australians, whether it's the energy bill price relief of $300 that we delivered last year with $160 more to come this year, whether it's cheaper medicines, cheaper childcare, or of course those tax cuts that have gone to every single Australian worker. So really important to just understand here what Jane is saying is not going to make any difference when you consider the fact that she's going to raise taxes on every single Australian taxpayer to pay for a $600 billion nuclear power plant that no one in our country actually wants.
That's nonsense. In fact, you're the only party talking about providing taxpayer-provided subsidies for energy. You have no solution to the energy crisis. All you've got is subsidies. That's not good enough. We want to introduce more supply into the system to bring prices down. Your solution is nothing at all.
But prices down... Prices down, Jane. I mean, you've told Australians this is going to be really meaningful, and now we find out today it's going to be maybe $60 a year, Jane. And you've just spent the last 3 years trying to stand in the path
better than $275 that never came to be. Claire, you've got no credibility on energy whatsoever.
I think we've covered that. I think we've covered that. So we've got both policies there. Let's move on to this because this is an interesting one. There are calls this morning for Shadow Defence Minister Andrew Hastie to be dumped from his portfolio because he's refusing to walk back on comments claiming only men should have close combat roles in the Australian Defence Force. He said, quote, "My personal view is the fighting DNA of a close combat unit is best preserved when it's exclusively male." Now, it comes just days after the Liberal Party dumped a different candidate for sharing similar views. Jane, does the Coalition stand by Andrew Hastie and those comments when it dumps someone for similar ones?
Peter Dutton's made this very clear that women should be able to serve in the ADF in any role in which they choose. That policy hasn't changed. It will continue. We also have incredible support for Andrew Hastie, who has served his country bravely in khaki at the front line, unlike the Defence Minister Richard Marles, who has never served in the ADF. Andrew Hastie has extraordinary experience. He has the support of Peter Dutton. He has support of the coalition, and our position hasn't changed. Women should be able to serve in the ADF in whichever position they choose.
Yeah, but just on that, why did you dump someone who said his personal view was women couldn't serve, and Andrew Hastie is saying something similar?
Yeah, my understanding is that there was more to that candidate than meets the eye, so I think that's what Peter Dutton has said, but our position certainly hasn't changed. Well, I don't know what the details are, Nat, I can't enlighten you on that.
So someone failed in the vetting process.
Peter Dutton has made it very clear that our position is that women should be able to serve in the ADF in whichever position they choose and whichever position they're capable of serving.
Okay. Claire, what do you think about this?
Well, you know, military jobs are really tough, and I know a lot of really bloody tough women, and that's why Labor can be absolutely unequivocal about this. Our government is completely supportive of women serving across the ADF. You know, we've got issues with our recruitment and personnel in the Australian Defence Force. What is it going to mean if we just exclude half of the population from serving in these critical roles? Right. Peter Dutton is going to have to clean up this mess today. We can't have a Defence Minister of this country that doesn't support women in military combat roles. That absolutely cannot happen. And as you point out, Nat, I don't understand why they sacked a Liberal candidate yesterday for sharing these views when actually the Shadow Defence Minister has these views. It is just an absolute mess over there in Liberal Party HQ, and I'll be keen to see how Peter Dutton tries to reconcile all these things today. OK,
just finally, Jane, how is Peter Dutton's father doing?
Yes, this was incredibly sad news that Peter Dutton's father had had a medical emergency just before the debate last night. I'm sure that there will be updates throughout the day, but I think you can rest assured that, the fact that Peter fronted up to the debate after hearing that news, performed exceptionally well, is demonstrative of, just how dedicated he is to the job that he has and the kind of Prime Minister that he will be.
OK, thank you very much both. See you next week. Here's Shep.
Thank you.